Hi, this is Noah Kimia, and you're watching the second episode of From the Ground Up, and I'm here with Wright. Coming from Texas, what's that like in comparison to then coming to New York and finding what your path would be versus the path of some of your friends from home?
Yeah, so coming from Texas is definitely an interesting perspective coming to New York, and also going to Pace. The atmosphere around Pace just among student life is very progressive, which is something that I was excited about because my high school, not that people are, well, I guess people tend to be more conservative in the South, just rule of thumb. Of course, it's not a strict adherence to that by any means. I know a lot of liberal people in the South, but just the general air of things, what the norms were, like the sort of the way that the crowd thinks about things is very different. So it made me, at least the way that I got to develop the 4 years of college, I was able to sort of sit in a different frame of mind than I would whenever I go back to the South. Yeah, but it's one of those things where just being surrounded by people, because to go back, I'm from Dallas, Texas, but not the city, like right outside in the suburbs. And so I'm new to a city environment, but I'm also not used to sort of the separation of nature and natural influences. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed as far as differences go, which led me and my roommate, who kind of, he approached me with the idea. This is my roommate, Shane. We started a garden at the end of our careers at Pace. Yeah, the Pace Produce Initiative. So that was sort of an effort to increase both our own interaction with nature in the city and also give that to other people. And then also, produce a lot of produce that we can share to people that have limited access to food and other resources. Something that I've really been enjoying this past year, living in an apartment versus the dorms, is like being able to have my own kitchen space, acquire tools, whatever I need, and actually really learn how to make tasty meals for myself and my roommates, and then share with them. They like to cook too. It's a community. And so I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm realizing the community around simple things like sharing food, sharing a meal, sharing spaces. As I've cut things out that I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need this, and it only brings me joy in like the moment. So, which I guess cutting out things that bring you joy isn't always the best, but it's like superficial joy, I guess.
There's a concept of pleasure versus joy. There was a speaker who came to Pace to talk about it. One's temporary and one lasts. Sometimes by taking away aspects of the temporary, the lasting joy tends to go further out.
Yeah, I think that pleasure is a better word than joy for what I'm describing, because it really is just like an in the moment, you get some sort of stimulation, and yeah, in your brain, things start to feel good for that second until it goes over. After cutting that out and realizing that really isn't the aspect that brings me joy, it's more of the community of just spending time with somebody.
Yeah, I so feel that.
I'm realizing other things in my life that are similar, like just stimulations, like a great example would be our phones. I feel like most people at some point come across some sort of dialogue about how our phones are screwing with our anxiety or just not good for our mental health.
Everyone feels like they're saying it for the first time, but it's also like something we've all been saying and
exactly.
also keep doing.
I've started to realize just whenever I'm kind of aimlessly just like on my phone, and then how that affects other things about sort of my goals and what I'm trying to accomplish, whether that's, be around a stranger and feel confident, or it's actually sitting down and getting work done and being able to focus for a long time.
My phone broke for I don't know, 3 or 4 days. I didn't have a phone. It's like, this is the nicest thing. Like, I just don't even want another phone. After getting a new phone, the day of graduation, having it be something that's so broadcasted, and then just getting texts from Israel and family in Boston and all this kind of stuff just all at once, and your phone just blowing up and people sending Snapchats and all this stuff. And I was like, personally, like, I didn't get my job offer until the day after, and I'm somebody who you have known since freshman year has always just been very neurotic and like, I need the next answer, I need to know. And to have that suddenly literally all eyes on you feeling, and it wasn't all eyes on you, especially at graduation. Everybody's so focused on their families and this kind of like self-accomplishment and seeing your friends, but when it comes to your phone, it's people directly referring to you, and people also kind of directly being like, so what's next? From every social media platform. And I was just like, I want to throw my phone out the window. Like, I just cannot do this right now. And it made it be so stressful. I don't know. That I can get into a whole other thing of, is it in our hands? Is it in our control? Or is it other people's control? Is it a balance?
Something that you're touching on is, like, I feel like when we realize that we have an issue with our phones, sort of this, like, radical solution pops into mind of, like, oh, I'm just going to get a flip phone. That would be, like, so much easier. But then you start to realize all the things that you'd be cutting out, which, you know, some people, it's like a thing that they spend a lot of time on that they necessarily don't need to. But at the same time, social media is a tool. You know, whether you are an independent creator or even just in your social life, you have the ability to craft an aura and make an impact on the first impression someone has of you before they even meet you, which can be terrifying, but can also be really cool, and you can play that into your advantage. And so there's a lot of benefits along with the downsides, but
It's true for most things.
Exactly. Yes, there's issues here, but completely going away with everything, I don't know if that's the best solution. It's more of like in the Nicomachean Ethics, you know, Aristotle, all he talks about, really, not all he talks about, but every aspect of being virtuous or being a good person comes from finding the mean between access and dearth. So, it's finding a balance.
I think the social media thing does relate back to it too, end of the day, with comparison, and also like, I feel like all my friends were, and this is really just why I'm a piece of specifically, is all my friends were joking about the whole status thing, about like, so glad to say I got hired here, and I'm like, yeah, people are so annoying. The minute I get hired, I'm like, let's go. Like, let's let people know. And it's tricky. It's tricky because there is that balance too of, I want my family to know, and Rachel's the first video that I posted. She's from Austria. Her parents are pretty well known in their community, and it was something that they got asked every day, and they're kind of even pushing her to, to talk about it, to let people know, because they're getting asked every day, and that's just also the weird thing. But I also feel like it's going to come with everything.
We try to do things that reaffirm our beliefs, whether that's...
Whoa, this is blowing my mind a little bit. I'm like, this is crazy.
Well, it's like, policy is probably the most substantial of these things that we do, because that's something that literally everyone has to agree upon. Obviously, we don't have to agree what our opinion is, but we have to point and be like, well, this is what it says. And so since it says this, I'm right. I know it is grounded for me. With what we're doing as young adults, kind of becoming independent now, I'm literally talking to you in like a very concrete way, like can be distributed and shared of like what I'm up to. But I think that there's this level of privacy about like, well, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm just trying to keep going. I don't know. It's kind of a random, vague, ambiguous way of saying that. The parents that I had have always been really supportive of just everything that I've done, which is
a privilege in its own too, yeah.
Just so lucky. I mean, I have friends who are also interested in the arts or just creating things, and, maybe when they were younger, they didn't have the same sort of support of just do whatever. Like, my house was the house where me and my friends that did like to make things, we would just always do it at my house. Or even awesome. Just hanging out. Yeah, it was the designated hangout spot, because my parents kind of got that, like, yeah, we can just let them be, and they'll be okay. They'll be fine. And we actually like weren't bad kids.
Back in the day, whenever we did Noah's Ark,
Yes.
because this is really us catching up for the first time in like 2 or 3 years. You were working on music.
I
Still up to
was.
that?
Music is something that I find myself always kind of coming back to as a hobby. You know, it's something fun to do to pass the time. It's really easy to get sucked into. And so I still work on music every now and then. I'm not pursuing any personal project really. I mean, I recently put out a bunch of beats that I had made over like a 30-day period where I was just trying to make something every day. But in general, I'm more interested in helping others. I have a lot of friends that make music, and so part of it is giving them like a little bit of a creative consultation. So listening
Very
to
cool.
things.
That's like very unique, I feel.
You know, I feel like I have a lot of talented friends who are passionate about the music, but there's so much that goes around being an artist, releasing your music in the most strategic way to reach the audiences that you're looking for. And while I'm not an expert at any of this, one of my closest collaborators, a guy named Garrickson, who I've known for a while, he's based in Texas. He's like he's an R&B singer, and he really likes to focus on his music, and then he trusts me with things like the visual direction and kind of guidance for how we should release things, like what makes sense here and there. Because I think that if it was up to him, it would just be like, okay, the song's done, let's put it out. Like, people need to hear this, which is true. But sometimes you just do it too soon. You know, it's too soon. It's not the right moment. Or someone else can put something out that kind of takes away from your momentum. So that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then
The biggest issue that I have to overcome personally is being okay with making money off of my art. Which sounds weird, but I've always felt weird about selling things, especially like if it was material goods, that's different in my head. Like if I'm selling like a shirt that I made, it just inherently feels like, yeah, you buy this, I give it to you. But with music
like personal.
or film it's something that it's this experience that I want people to have.
There's no question that you're a talented person. In college, like, you were killing it. You were doing these insane projects from, like, the site. I think they're, yeah.
It's
I mean,
always
obviously,
interesting
like,
to hear someone else's perspective, because to me it's just like, that's the thing that happened.
No, but I think there's no question. I think any single person, first of all, back to the Noah's Ark days, for you to be 18 years old, really dropped off here from Texas, working on projects with some pretty cool people. You can share whatever, because I don't know, obviously, like, similar to what you were saying, we have these different things that we do. And I felt it too with like some freelance that I was doing. Now I'll go into interviews and people are like, this is cool. And I'm like, for me, it feels like the norm. It was an office that I went into every single day. I don't really have that in my brain like that. Like, to me, it feels like I got a sense of excitement and fulfillment from that the same way I get a sense of excitement and fulfillment when I, like, make new friends or...